So once again, hello and welcome to the workshop of the LIBER Citizen Science Workgroup, Citizen Science, defining a role for my library. Before we start on the presentations for the first part of the workshop, we will do a little bit of housekeeping before we move on. And for that, I am Thomas Kostet from the Vice Chair of the Working Group, and Tiberius Ignat, Vice Chair of the Working Group, would also help to do the introductions. First of all, as you are probably aware, if you have joined other sessions, it will be recorded and we will share the slides afterwards. So before we get into the program, the first hour or so will consist of presentations. If there is time, the presenters will answer questions and I will try to monitor the chat. But we do have a whole hour afterwards for 3 breakout groups. And if your questions are not answered in the main session, we definitely hope to answer them in the chat. So the first hour is presentation. The second hour is a facilitated discussion in breakout groups. And there's a little bit of housekeeping there that I would like to add at this point. When the first session, the first hour is over, I will come back on and Roos from LIBER will assign you to a breakout group. There are 3 groups which will follow the presentations. After your group is about to end, the moderator or the facilitator will ask you to join another group and you will get back to the main room where you can choose the next group that you are going to be in. We will repeat this afterwards. So very briefly, before I hand over to Tiberius, 3 brief presentations for 15 minutes or so from the working group. The first will be my colleague Anne-Katrine Overgaard from SDU and myself, who will talk about citizen science, advocacy, and engagement. And as you can see, it's beautifully aligned that Anne-Katrine and I have a workout group with advocacy barriers and how no one size fits all when it comes to getting started in citizen science. Then Simon Worthington will present the work that we do in the working group on our research librarian's guide to citizen science. And after that, Simon, together with our good colleagues, Stefan and Vaso, will have a breakout group, tips and tricks from the guide, how to get going. And you can see the third presentations, templates for a single point of contact, building on the Bespoke model. That will be Dirk van Gorp and Tiberius Ignat. And also they have breakout groups. So we hope to meet all of you in the breakout groups afterwards. Before I hand over to Tiberius, the goals of this workshop could be set. Why do libraries want to enter into citizen science, or the big why? Of course, inspiration on how to get started. We want to test some of the tools that we are building. And in the end, when we are finished in a couple of hours, we hope to get a clearer picture from you where your library and your role could fit in. So that was the outline of the workshop and in 2 parts. And now I would like to hand over to Tiberius to a presentation of the working group and the speakers. Tiberius.
Hello, everyone. Once again, thank you for being here with us. We understand how demanding is participating to online event these days. So we highly appreciate your participation here. And I hope it will worth it for you. The LIBER Citizen Science Working Group has started in 2019 when we had a conference in Dublin. And it takes further the LIBER Roadmap for Open Science, where we have 4 recommendations for citizen science, for European research libraries to embed citizen science in their activities. And we developed we actually mapped these 4 recommendations in 6 strategic directions in our working group. The first one is projects, and Vaso Kalaiti is here with us. She is heading this part, and we try to be part of citizen science projects at European level. Vaso can tell you more about such projects, including Enos, one very successful project. Then second is the staff development, and this is looking to the development of members in the working group, recruiting members, allocating tasks. We have part of our definition of success. We say that we should accomplish our ambitions with this working group, working no more than 2 hours per week for this working group. But we are also trying to understand what staff development are needed at the research library level, not only the working group. Partnership, so for staff development is Mitya Iskrish from Ljubljana. Partnership, I am responsible for this, and we are looking to partner with others. As you probably know, citizen science could be done successfully if we partner with others. Then we have advocacy, where Thomas is leading this part. Then building infrastructure, our colleague Dirk, he's also one of the speakers today. And we try to create this research librarians guide to to create an implementation of bespoke models, templates, and more. And then research librarians guide. This is Simon Worthington here with us, and we try to create this research librarians guide to citizen science. So these are the 4 strategic directions we work on. Next slide, please. Here is the part of our working group, which is also doing facilitation and being hosts for you today. And we wanted to put also a face next to names. It's Anne-Katrine Overgaard, the head of external projects of health for Southern Denmark University. Vaso Kalaitsi, I think many of you know her from other also LIBER activities, head of international projects at LIBER. Dirk van Gorp, open science manager at Radboud University. Simon Worthington, researcher, Open Science Lab of Technical Library, German Technical Library. Stefan Wiederkehr, head of special collections and digitization at Zurich Library. Thomas Karsted, the deputy library director at Southern Denmark University. And myself, the director of scientific knowledge services. And next slide, please. It will give you a chance to see these names. Okay. And this is it in a nutshell. I think we are all eager to kick in and to produce some nice results. Thank you for participation, and we look forward to have a lot of energy and engagement and some fresh new ideas today.
Thank you for that, Tiberius. And what is happening at this point is that I am trying to put on the first presentation. So please bear with me, colleagues, for just 1 second. Then Anne-Katrine and I will start presenting. Someone please tell me if you can see my slides.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Tiberius. What will happen for the next 45 minutes or so is that we will go through how to get started with citizen science with some examples from Anne-Katrine and myself. Then we will hand over to Simon, who will present the guide we are working on, and afterwards Tiberius and Dirk will go through the bespoke model and the templates that we are trying to build. This is all to prep for the 3 working groups, breakout groups, sorry. So in a nutshell, citizen science, what is it? How can we get started? And why could it be crucial that the UN SDGs could play a role in this? So what we will do is that Anne-Katrine will take you through what do we actually mean citizen science, because it's still a fairly new term. it's still something that are discussed. There might be even misunderstandings on what it is or if it is science. I'd like to, because the university library at SDU is very part of a knowledge center we have built with the faculties. So Anne-Katrine will take you through that. The second part of that presentation will be that I will share some thoughts on what we did at SDU on how to get started really from absolutely nothing within citizen science and how the library got involved and end up with the UN SDGs. So that will be for the next 15 minutes or so. Anne-Katrine, please, over to you.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Well, I'm not from a library, I'm from our Faculty of Health Sciences, but I have been working with Thomas for almost 5 years. And our mission has been to establish citizen science at SDU. Next, please. Thomas and I use 2 models to explain our take on citizen science, and this one is by Golombek. And this model shows 3 fundamental elements in citizen science: inclusion, contribution, and reciprocality. Inclusion and contribution is, of course, very important, but we believe that it is in reciprocality that you can strike gold, because it is in dialogue that both citizens and researchers can gain new insights and knowledge. Next, please. The other model is by Mukihagbey, and this model shows different levels of participation in citizen science, from citizens as censors to extreme citizen science, understood as a true and equal collaboration between citizens and researchers on a given project. Well, it should be said that for us, no level is better than the other. It all depends on the project and on the researcher. Our citizen science project don't just fit one concept. It depends on the specific project, but we always try to focus on interaction, dialogue, and feedback. Next, please. In Denmark, citizen science is often used for data collection and mapping of wildlife, but at SDU, we see citizen science as more than that. We see citizen science as a method for interaction and dialogue between citizens and researchers, thereby reducing the distance between them to enhance dialogue, debate based on knowledge and fact, instead of fake news and personal opinions. Thomas and I began our citizen science journey with SDU Citizen Science Network, and early this year, the network transformed into a citizen science knowledge center with a steering committee consisting of deans, department chairs, our head of the library, and our pro-rector. The knowledge center is based in the library, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm from the Faculty of Health Sciences, and at the faculty we know about research and education. But for citizen science, we need additional competences and skills. And we see our research library as an ideal partner for doing citizen science. The Knowledge Center is run by a few seed money from the faculties and from the library. And the library play an important role as a facilitator and a bridge between citizens and research, as well as a collaborator for our researchers. And we do believe in the power of many. So this Knowledge Center is a true partnership between the library and the faculties workers, as I, seen here in the middle, bridging media, citizens, NGOs with the researchers to engage and empower citizens, to influence policy, and to help the researchers to get better data, and maybe to ask even better research questions through a dialogue with the citizens. Next, please. The mission of our Citizen Science Center is to bring citizens closer to research and bring researchers closer to society. and to broker knowledge sharing about citizen science, and to open the research project process for all citizens across all levels of education and social group through communication, education, and learning. And we want to enable researchers to conduct excellent research with regards to citizen science and provide relevant services for researchers and enable them to act themselves. And of course, to support the SDGs. Next, please. The task of the center is to initiate citizen science project and dissolve the traditional walls between researchers, teachers, and other link in the chain of education. And it is to initiate projects in collaboration with public, including new and established media. Our task is to support researchers in managing citizen science project and building communities, and of course to promote open science. The Citizen Science Center will also play a role as an enhancer of research knowledge and discussion in society, including public debate in the media and among decision makers. Next, please. For the last 4 years, we have supported 22 citizen science projects with a total reach of 1 million people. And the way we support citizen science is by doing and supporting the concrete task listed in this slide. So it's quite hands-on, as you see. And our best advice to get started with citizen science is just do it. Team up with some strong professors, secure the support from the leaders, and jump in. It's good fun. Next, please. This slide shows some of the logos from our 22 citizen science project. And I will give the floor back to Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you. As Anne-Katrine said, we have been working quite closely together from the library with members of all faculties. And I think it's important, before I take you through some steps on how we did get started at SDU, is that the library could be seen in a university with a lot of interest, a lot of researchers. The library could be seen as a sort of neutral place to do facilitation and research support services within citizen science. And it's just to say that at SDU we managed to do that, but really to say that we started virtually without nothing at all. At one point, my library director, Bertil Dork, went to a meeting with the Dean of Faculty from Health Science and Anne-Katrine, who you just met. And Anne-Katrine showed us this article, said that citizen science might be a new trend that could help bridge universities reach society. And we went home and read that and thought, whoa, there actually might be a point here. But besides from getting a good idea or have good people steer you in the direction of citizen science, advocacy or how to get started. And first of all, before I take 5 minutes to do that, in Denmark, we ran a 2-year library citizen science project on the national level. And we had the assistant professor from Aarhus, Christian Wittfeldt Nielsen, assist us in trying to make some recommendations for citizen science and libraries. And the first and foremost recommendation he gave us was citizen science and libraries is not one size fits all. Citizen science are a very, very diverse practice or set of methods. Universities have different profiles, libraries have different profiles. So because we have done it one way at SDU does not necessarily mean that other libraries will have to fit that blueprint. But as LIBER are so kind to share our slides afterwards, I will start with 12 brief steps that will look a little bit like a wall when you meet it. But it's just to say that if you sit out there and are confused, worried, excited how to get started in citizen science, but can't really break the nutshell, I think there is a method that we used at SDU where there were no big institutional interest to begin with. We did not get a big pot of money or some grants. We did not get 5 employees to start this. So what Anne-Katrine and I did was simply, we sat down and we studied the thing. Then we tried to find out, were citizen science actually present at our institution? And to our big surprise, it actually was. But what we also found out was there were approximately, if we count health science, maybe 10 or 15 other research methods that are very close to citizen science that enabled us to do a dialogue with researchers within this field. And what we did was we simply mapped some of those in order to find some target groups. Then at one point, and we were lucky at SDU that our library director, Bertil, was in the loop to begin with. But of course, it's very, very critical that if we want to start facilitating or do research support services or even join citizen science, that the library's mission and strategy are aligned with that and that with one of the university. And I will show an example from that at SDU in a little while. But also at our own library, at one point, we had to sit down and have this discussion. Do we really want to do this? Do we think that it actually fits the scope of our library and university? And at SDU, that was quite simple, because when Bertil began as our library director in 2013, he quite quickly introduced an agenda with open science, and citizen science is an intricate part of citizen science, or could even be seen as the tools or method that could enable researchers to venture into citizen science. But afterwards, if you want to venture into that, do you have the skills and competences in your library? We also encourage you to find citizen science examples that fit your target groups. And of course, some of this might be very incremental, but it's just to say there is a method to actually doing this. What we did was we went out to research communities at SDU, at centers, and we simply presented our plans. We presented citizen science as we as a library or a knowledge center saw that. And we did, I don't know how many meetings, workshop, communications, and also made sure that our managements or deans of faculties were in the loop. And as the project started in, we both got commitments for our 22 projects, but we also managed to persuade, if you could use that word, upper level management to actually invest in this. So all these steps that took us almost 3 years went into the Knowledge Center, which is sort of the next phase. And you can see we have done all kinds of workshops in trying to hammer this out. What we do now have is a strategy. We have a number of partners. We have clear governance. We managed to allocate resources. We were also fortunate enough to join the LIBER Citizen Science Work Group, and building on the work of coming first from the LIBER recommendations, but also the work from Tiberius, who will present in a little while, and Paul Aries, the chair of our working group, we managed to grapple at a concept that fitted us at SDU using the Bespoke model. We also recruited partners with regards to public engagement. We secured the funding, and we have begun to building networks within public schools and high schools where we can implement our programs. So it's just to say that model worked at SDU. It's important that there are no one-size-fits-all within libraries, and it's very, very important that libraries find their own way if they want to venture into citizen science. So the last 2 minutes I will spend with the UN SDGs before handing over to Simon Worthington. And as you might see at SDU, SDU strategy is the UN SDGs. So at one point, our Vice Chancellor said that if SDU are working with research, with teaching, or with public engagement, the SDGs should be at the core of what we do. And that is very, very good news for citizen science, because there is, building on the Berlin Declaration in 2013, a number of universities and research communities and EXA has signed the Our World, Our Goals statement that says that UN, SDGs, and citizen science are totally interlinked, and that gives a framework for delving into that. Also, very importantly, an intricate part of this declaration, a number of renowned citizen science researchers and statisticians in 2019 published a roadmap on how to interlink citizen science and the sustainability goals in order to develop new indicators to see if the goals are actually achieved. So there are a number of things, a number of methods, a number of broader terms that we as libraries can check into. And really, citizen science, for it to happen in reality, a lot of good things is going on already. But our experience at SDU is that researchers, while being excellent at research, often reach out or would want to reach out, for example, to libraries in order to do facilitation of citizen science. So libraries, in our experience, could definitely play a role here. So thank you from Anne-Katrine and me for letting us present at the workshop. This was the first advocacy and some tips on how to get started. Simon, I will hand over to you for the middle part of the presentation now.
Great, thank you so much, Anne-Katrine and Thomas. I really feel like I've learned a lot, and it's great. Thank you. You've done the kind of groundwork for me. I don't need to make the case for citizen science. I can talk about how we're going to do that. Well, how we think we could do this. So I'm aiming to spend like 10 of my 15 minutes, but and take some questions. So what I'm introducing you to is an output of our working group, the Citizen Science Working Group, and we're calling it the Citizen Science for Research Libraries, so a guide. And like Tiberius said, the working group is based on the recommendations that came out of the LIBER Open Science strategy. And so we're looking at how we're expanding these. It's going to be a 100-page publication released in sections. Our first section on skilling will be out in July. And I want to say I'm one of the co-editors-in-chief, along with Thomas Carstead, who you've already met. And I really want to say a big thank you to Paul Iris, who's heading the chair of the editorial committee, and to more working group members, and to the LIBER office. And I say this because it's their support that is really making this happen. And as on a kind of personal side, we've all got to find a place to try and help. Well, we want to find a place to help open science happen. And so for me, guides, I think, ways of condensing and transmitting these ideas, exploring them, are very important. And we will be holding the second breakout group with Vaso Cagliazzi and Stefan Wiedekehr. And that's the how to get going tips and tricks from research libraries. I'll remind you about that again at the end. But to introduce you to the section editors, we have 4 sections to the publication. Our first section, Citizen Science Skilling for Staff, Researchers and the Public, is edited by Jitka Stillund Hansen of Technical University Denmark. Each of the section editors, the sections are 25 pages, the section editors are running each section, so they take it's their domain. Jitka's interests have been previously in editing and publishing guides to fair data. So a lot of the work here in skilling is around these issues of fair data, of findability, accessibility, interoperability, reusability, and the other skills that are needed if you're going to position or support your university research staff. What are those skills? So we've identified communications, project management, research data management, which obviously relates to fair data, and also scientific literacy. So it's about those things and how do you transfer them over to things you already do, skills you already have. How do you transfer them over? Closely linked to, I suppose, coupled with the skilling, the second section we have is about the research infrastructure. So what did you have at a library that you can already repurpose? The section editor here is Kirsty Wallace, who works in Paul Iris's office of Open Science in the library at University College London. We'll be releasing this section after the summer in September. And what Kirsty has identified here, as I said, is really to look around at the infrastructure you already have, repositories, social media accounts. And what Kirsty is trying to do here is look at case studies about who has had success in using these facilities and repurposing them. And also a kind of interesting thing that Kirsty's been looking at is obviously COVID. How have, it is us academia that has kind of expanded in this way with so many open services. So finding examples there, and also that there is quite a close crossover now with citizen science and humanities GLAM projects. So yeah, looking around at the things we have. Our next section, section 3, is edited by Bastian Grishak-Chavoras of the project Open Humans. And I suppose Bastian here is applying his knowledge from Open Humans, which has really been looking at how can you make collaborative research environments where wearable data, health data. So these are things that maybe, as libraries, we're used to dealing with research data management, but there's all this data being produced by citizens. And who's going to be a good custodian of that and think about the ethical issues related? And I suppose this also really does highlight the fact that open science is about a technical infrastructure provision, but also about the social issues of inclusion, equality, knowledge, justice. These are equal parts of open science. And I think the challenge that Bastian has here is like, how do you apply those to citizen science? Who's going to be responsible for the data? What are the legal, ethical issues involved? He's using examples like the Turing project, which is an open guide to data science. And we can see out of kind of technologies there's all these tools that people can use. So he's also looking at like the democratization of data science through the use of Jupyter notebooks. So we have a new tool set, and these are being transferred or can be transferred, can be used in the citizen science area, but it's like, how? And I would say, and our last section to be released in November is being edited by Paul Iris. And of course, Paul is applying his great knowledge and experience here in looking at how do you develop a program. So very much kind of related to what Anna, Katrine, and Thomas have been saying. But obviously they are leaders in this, they've been doing it. But that question of advocacy, strategy, and this connection to what was mentioned by Thomas as the SDGs, but the SDGs are also connected to Agenda 2030. When are they going to be realized? And also the new UNESCO Open Science recommendations due to be ratified at the end of this year. So a very interesting set of kind of frameworks that have had a lot of consultation to attach, to interpret into citizen science through. I want to change tack a little bit here. So I've taken you through the four sections of the publication, but really to look at some of the things, what are we responding to around us in social movements and in the world? I mean, and I don't think the citizen science of 10 years ago as the open science of 10 years ago is the open science or citizen science of now. Things are different. So we can see that COVID has made a new normal, and one of the mottos of the SDGs or Agenda 2030 is leave no one behind. But the question is, how can we achieve that? Are we going to achieve that? Now, we've seen, interestingly, that, of course, it's open science, but science has been opened by COVID. I mean, people are, people are much more interested in science. Everyone becomes a home data scientist. But I think we should take some kind of credit, as in academia, for the fact that it is academia that have put these open conferences, learning resources all over the place during the COVID period. And it's not been government, it's not been the private sector, it's us together as academia. So I think there's something we can build on there. But we do also, as I'm pointing out here, we have to look at those biases that are inherent in academia, in computing. So I've kind of mentioned these two publications from MIT Press, one Knowledge Justice about race in US library systems, and also about technology bias in computing. I think another aspect is to look at what role the library can take out in wider society. Now, we know that there's a big problem with data handling, data misuse. So this is a question as much as anything, but we know that there are different a lot more data being used by the public, and we can see that these become big parts of citizen science. So as I mentioned with Bastian, wearable data around health, around sport, but also in terms of city planning, around energy use, and what kind of climate models relate to those. And we can see that various academics have been able to change the discourse. I'll give you an example of Francesca Bria, who, with a number of other projects and over a number of projects, but take, for example, the Decode project, which changed around smart cities into being about data sovereignty and about public engagement in the city. So I think there are these, and pointing to what's happening in COVID, there's still unresolved question about who can be a good custodian of data. And it can even just be about this knowledge and skills and resources that the library have to offer to others. And I would say as a last point here is obviously climate change. And we can see that climate change and environmental issues have always been a big part of citizen science. But there's a lot to be understood in terms of how climate change affects people locally, globally, obviously, but also the kind of challenges of how to work with these emerging social movements. Is difficult. With Climate Strike, I'll give you an example. The Natural History Museum in Berlin made a lot of efforts to work with the youth movement of Climate Strike, and there are going to be successes and failures. But I think this is something on our collective agenda. And I would just, like to just come back to finishing up on the publication and what we're doing with it. As I say, we're putting out the 4 sections. It is something to be reused, and it's very important to mention our partners here that we're looking to with SciStarter, who we took the inspiration from in the US, who produced the guide around public libraries. But we look to go forward and work with them and take, as I might have mentioned, taking examples from the Turing Way, which have made a community-owned publication. And already through LIBER, we're going to be we are collaborating with the INOS project, which looks at how citizen science engages with higher education. So we are just doing this these four sections, and that will be the end of this cycle of work. But we do very much look to partnerships and a continuation. So I suppose it's really just to kind of put that out there to people and give some indicators of where we're going. So I say, I'd wrap up there. And like I might have said before, we're myself, along with Vaso and Stefan, are going to be running session 2, tips and tricks. So please come and join us, and I will hand back to Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Besides what you mentioned with COVID and citizen science, an observation is that during the COVID crisis, a number of citizen science and open science centers have magically popped up at the European universities all over Europe. So I think that is interesting in itself. And I think there is a real window of opportunity here for libraries to venture into citizen science. Looking at the time a little bit, and that we have 3 breakout rooms, I think at this point, I will hand over to Tiberius and Dirk. I believe that is the thing you are speaking. So please, guys, take it away.
Okay, so I'll try to condense a bit. So I will speak today about Bespoke, the model Bespoke, and possible also interactions with EOS, not concentrating on that. So what inspired us to create this prototype, Bespoke, is a prototype for a single point of contact for citizen science at universities, is advice papers from 2016, so 5 years now, which was published by the European League of Research Universities. And they were recommending creating, where viable, a single point of contact for citizen science within the institutions to advise scientists and ensure liaison with national and regional citizen science services. This recommendation remained, I would say, inactive until 2020, and we decided to do something about it. We created a protocol called, prototype called Bespoke Broad Engagement in Science Point of Contact. We published it in a paper with UKSG, and we also took it in our working group to develop from the prototype to various implementation phases, hopefully to reach an alpha phase soon. So I remind you, this is a prototype, is not a proof of concept, is not anything like alpha or beta version of a service or a product. And of course, is published and transparent and available to everyone. In a nutshell, this is a system of portals, a system of frameworks and reports that are constantly updated, and a number of connectors. This is a general template, a general prototype. It could be adapted from university to university or research organization to research organization. It has the ultimate goal of creating a desk, physical, digital hybrid, where from that desk to support the stronger engagement between one research organization and the society that it serves. It also has the aim, if other bespoke implementations if we'll see other big bespoke implementations, to connect this into a network of services. Where could be used? I am part of a medium to big research project with citizen science, where is led by Coventry University, and we are 11 partners spread across Europe, and we are investigating how much are we tracked by default when we use internet applications and other web-based applications. We needed to start with pretty much everything from the scratch. We would have loved to have different templates to start with them, maybe to adjust if needed. For example, to have a set of practices for engagement, for recruiting scientists. We would also have loved to have different guidelines for engaging with the legal and safety compliance offices in different organizations. Out of 11, 9 organizations are universities. And we didn't have this, we needed to create everything. Of course, it would have been very useful for us if we had, for example, a connector with research offices in these organizations to connect with in the phase of application when we applied for a call for projects. We didn't have that. A bespoke model, when well implemented, will offer all of these things. So those considering citizen science projects will not start from the scratch. They will feel supported and they will be more efficient, also effective in writing proposals and then running and managing the research projects. Remember, this is very important. Citizen science is indeed about enhancing the scientific research, but it's not only about that. It's about addressing societal needs. It's about creating education both ways from public, so the public to know, to understand better the activity of researchers, to understand better that, for example, researchers are not finding the truth, they are only finding new evidences as long as they remain accepted by the society. And also the researchers to learn the other way around from the public, to learn more about ethics, expectations of society, from the society, and different challenges and opportunities that are very relevant for the impact of the research activity. The true value of this prototype is to nurture a community of curious minds, to educate people, to consolidate trust in research, to help guiding the society how to distill evidence from misinformation, how to understand what is sustainable development and when they are manipulated, for example. And it's also about making researchers better citizens, not only about citizens to become researchers. Well, we don't want them to become full researchers. It's enough if they become more familiar and ready to support the research activities, but also the other way around, researchers to become better citizens. So this is in a nutshell, and my contact details, and now I hand it over to my colleague Dirk.
Thank you, Tiberius. Okay, sharing my screen now. There we go. You can all see my screen, Tiberius, can you confirm?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Now I'm going to close this one. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dirk van Gorp. I'm the Open Science Manager at the Radboud University in Nijmegen. And welcome to our Citizen Science workshop. Today, several of my colleagues already spoke about the why of citizen science, the benefits of citizen science, and how to get started. I am heading one of the strategic directives of the Citizen Science Working Group, the LIBER Citizen Science Working Group, I should say. And in this strategic directive, I focus on creating templates for, amongst others, libraries to use to create a citizen science support hub or citizen science bespoke, as Tiberius already discussed. So Tiberius already mentioned the bespoke, broad engagement in science, the point of contact. Just a quick overview summary. Tiberius already mentioned some of it. What should a bespoke comprise or potentially comprise? On the one hand, it's an online hub or website to share institutional goals and policies, to highlight citizen science projects, to provide templates for citizen science skills, etc., frameworks for partnerships, basically an online place where people can go to if they want to know more about citizen science in general and also citizen science within your specific institution. On the other hand, it can be a service desk to be an actual point of contact for people to actually go to if they have questions about citizen science, not just researchers, not just scientists, not just citizens, but also third parties, people interested in science in general. Basically, everybody should be able to find this service desk. The service desk should be there to answer questions, to make sure that people who have questions are actually being catered to, and also perhaps possibly to act as a liaison or an intermediate within the university. So, for example, between different scientists within the university itself, scientists working, for example, a scientist who thinks about going for a citizen science project can then get in contact via the service desk with another scientist who has already conducted citizen science. But also to act as an intermediate between citizens on the one hand and scientists on the other hand, of course. It can be a tool for communication and marketing. On the one hand, to reach out, of course, for scientists to find citizens and for citizens to find scientists, but also very important to stay in touch. In many cases, citizens are involved in a project, but once a project is basically finished or partially finished, they often don't get sufficient information on how the project continues afterwards, what other sorts of information, what other sorts of projects are derived from a specific citizen science project. So this tool for communication should be able to help those citizens out, also those scientists out. And it should be a pool of knowledge and expertise to help out. This pool of knowledge can be located within the actual Bespoke itself. I'll get to that in a minute. But it can also, once again, I mentioned it before, act as an intermediate to make sure that everybody who has questions are linked, those people are linked with the people who know more about this within your university, whether they're actually part of the Bespoke or not. The strategic direction of our LIBER Citizen Science Working Group is the single point of contact, the goal of which is to deliver a template or a suite of templates, to be more accurate, with accompanying advocacy for a single citizen science contact point. It's focused primarily on research libraries, at least research libraries and or research support teams located within the library. But it doesn't necessarily should be implemented in research libraries. It can also be used in other sorts of supporting services divisions within your university. Our primary focus, once again, is the library. So we try to move from that point onwards and see how a library can become a single point of contact, or how a single point of contact can actually be located within a library, established in a library. But basically, you can do the same in any other division within your university. And the focus is the creation of a suite of templates for the creation of a Bespoke at a university, whether that's in the library or not. The creation of a website, the portal I mentioned just before, the online service desk setup, the creation of content templates, or an overview of several content templates that are moving across the web, that are already available online and within the university or other universities. And possibly in the long run, it could also contain templates for courses, trainer courses, for example, workshops, etc., etc. So the creation of a Bespoke goal and scope is one of the first things you should focus on. What sort of Bespoke do you want to be? As Tiberius already mentioned, there's no one size, as Thomas already mentioned, there's no one size fits all. And Tiberius already also spoke about the fact that the Bespoke is not necessarily a blueprint for every university. Basically, what you need to do is make sure that your Bespoke fits your university. So for some universities, that means that the Bespoke will basically be an intermediary. Let's say that's the lower hanging fruit of Bespoke. What an intermediary does is being a forwarding service. So taking the questions and then forwarding those questions to other services within your university. And in order for this to happen, to make it work, you need to clearly establish the rights and responsibilities of all parties involved. But once you do this, you basically have an intermediary service and all the different partners that are taking part in this Bespoke can still continue to work as they have been working before. But now people basically have a place to ask questions if they have questions regarding citizen science. That's the low-hanging fruit of the Bespoke services. But it can also be an independent service in itself, which includes its own governance, its own legal backing, its own finance backing, its own research data management experts, etc., etc. You can make it as large as you want it to be. If your university is very serious about citizen science, such an independent service can be your way to go. And naturally, of course, there's also, in many cases, your Bespoke will be something between an intermediary, but also including some independent service aspects. Having your own, let's say, research data management expert or GDPR expert will already be a major step towards creating a proper service. Questions you should ask yourself: should it focus on citizens and/or scientists? That's in many cases people will conclude that it will be both, naturally. But then you need to decide in what way. Do you want to focus on scientists first or focus on citizens first? Do you need to make this decision? Such questions are very important. So we are creating a template in which these questions are discussed, and the pros and cons of every decision are being included. And should it be library driven, or should the library basically participate? Should it be located within the library itself? Should the library be a major player, or simply one of the players, for example, by having a research data management expert participate, for example? So the pros and cons of a Bespoke at a library, some pros and cons. Let's start with the pros. A library is independent of the departments, and so for all departments, it usually has a very large network and thus is an ideal intermediary for all faculties involved, which can be very useful if people from, let's say, the humanities want to know more about those projects that are being conducted within the science department. It often already serves as a support hub. Many libraries have an open science support hub. And it should be for research. It already is for researchers, students, and non-academics. So they already cater to those, to let's say, the major players within citizen science. And it often plays a social role within the academic community. But there are some cons as well. You may not have an open science or similar research support team with related goals and/or capacity. There's still the traditional image of the library, so many people may not find your support hub when you locate it within a library. And there might also be competing or parallel services within the university, in which case it's much more logical to go for the other services to create the Bespoke there. Just a quick overview. These are the deliverable templates we are trying to create and we are currently working on to create. Deliverables for the creation of a work group for overall scope and goals, creation of a team for implementation, maintenance, service, desk, etc. Creation of networks for expertise and visibility, and templates for the cooperation with other departments and services. We will provide templates for the creation of a portal or website, including the service desk with the basic forwarding functions, communication focus, including email, the checks and answers email, and the sharing of news, and a portal for people to get in touch. And it should include, we also focus on the creation of a website and what sort of information should be included in the website, on the website. This is a first example of such a template. This is the website one, which is also, in many cases, the first step a library will take to create, towards the creation of a Bespoke. First, sharing information. And afterwards, if you're creating a very, let's say, encompassing, a very detailed Bespoke, then you may also want to include templates on data gathering, on curation, on approaching interested parties and citizens, etc., etc. So if you want to, you can also include such templates. Also, for example, for tool or app creation, or for the evaluation of infrastructure, etc., etc. So that's it from our end, from my end. I will now give the floor very briefly to Thomas, I believe, who will now explain the next step for this workshop.
Thank you, Dirk. Thank you, Tiberius. Before we go over to the breakout groups, I think there are two observations at this point. First, with the UN SDGs, a lot of European universities are committing to those. And I think a few universities, I personally were in a year-end workshop with some people from Maastricht University who were building a similar structure to citizen science within the UN SDGs. And I think if we work with a bespoke model, I think there are some people who work with different topics, but with related topics that we could definitely share some knowledge with. The other thing that I will mention to this group is that LIBER, beginning with a knowledge cafe yesterday, has kicked off a new strategy work. And I think it's very important that even though citizen science slowly is taking off also within libraries, that if we want to commit to citizen science in the long run, it's quite critical that that will feature in the next cycle also, because it's still new and it is a massive opportunity also for LIBER to reach out to, for example, US libraries where this is just only a conversation that is beginning. So at this point, the aim of the three working groups, breakout groups that you are going into is how to get started, how to get going, and how to consolidate. And members of the working group will take good care of you and will discuss during the breakout session. What you will encounter is an interactive whiteboard where you can write comments, and all these comments and suggestions are saved afterwards and used to the continuous work of our working group. So you actually give us input both to concrete cases from what we're actually working with, as long as good tips and what we could be working with in the future. So right now, Ruth, our administrator in this here, which right now is writing in the chat, will assign you to a working group. It will be approximately 15-20 minutes. And then the moderators or facilitators will kindly ask you to join another breakout group afterwards. So you will be sent to the main group where you are now. And if you are lost, Ruth will be there and guide you on to where you are going. Afterwards, we have a very, very brief wrap up. So Ruth, will you kindly attach people to our breakout rooms and see you there? Hello, everybody, and nice to see you again. As always in this, I think at one point you said we are all part of the big LIBER family, and it's nice to meet some of you, which I know very well, and talk again. This is just a really brief wrap up. I hope that you got something, a few takeaways, insights that might be useful at your own libraries when you consider citizen science. The info and the data and the conversations we have collected will go into the collective work of the group. So thank you for that. I am only to, if Tiberius, if you have any parting comments, I think the only thing that I would do is say thank you for my good colleagues from the work group to join and facilitate this. Tiberius, do you have any parting words for our friends?
I just want to say that in the breakout 3, where Derek and I have been, it worked extremely well, beautifully, and with a lot of new ideas that haven't been posed to us before. So I think this was a very successful meeting, in my opinion. It encourages us to do some similar, of course, if the participants are feeling the same. And I also want to, before forgetting doing that, to encourage you to consider joining our working group at LIBER. I think you will be pleased with the activities that we may do together there. So fresh new ideas, completely new ideas.
And also, I think on behalf of Simon and a little bit from myself, over the summer, we will publish the first part of the Research Librarian's Guide. We will publish it incrementally as the chapters are finished. So that might be something to look forward to. We have put all our contact info also on the working group in the slides. So please reach out. And I think before 2 minutes before we end, thank you for joining, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you for joining our workshop.
Colleagues, if Thomas, if I can do, because the Bespoke model was only shortly presented, I can copy a link if any of us would like to see the full presentation.
Yeah. Thank you for that, and take care and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Thank
day.
you.
Bye.
Bye.